the silver and the bronze. I give you Canada, France, Germany, Serbia, and Australia.
Germany, more so than Canada. I think that their talent, it's a little more tiered. You know what Dennis Schroeder's capable of, Franz Wagner, another player, Daniel Tice steps up, and Mo Wagner as well. They're built to really take advantage of the mistakes that Team USA makes, and they can make the effort plays.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Try and set the stage for what should be a great year of NFL action.
There's a handful of teams that potentially can compete for a Super Bowl championship.
Confusion and uncertainty this year more than some in the past.
This team looks like it's ready to make a move, but we just don't know if it's bad or good this year.
J.J. McCarthy is eventually going to take over, but it's a no-lose situation for them.
I mean, they suck. They were 7-10.
Only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead if they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on Sport.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? This is FST Fantasy Sports Today. My name is Matt Stryker, joined as always by the illustrious one, Joe Pisapia, the author of the Fantasy Black Book series. It has changed the way people are dominating, whether it be season-long fantasy, DFS, straight-up wagering, whatever it is, the angles, the viewpoints, the mind of this man, Joe Pisapia. Oh my gosh. Really quickly, want to remind everyone, if you're new to the show, at SportsGrid TV. Those are our social media handles. Double check that you're following along because we're going to be giving you so much information. Joe, that's my setup. Welcome in, my man. We have football every single week for the rest of your life, pretty much from here on in. So you should be a happy boy.
For the rest of my life of 2024, yes. It's going to be a very busy time. This is that, dare I say, calm before the storm, but it's great. I mean, football is king in the world of fantasy for a reason. It's incredibly fun. There's so many ways to play it. And what's great, too, about this show is we're always trying to approach it from a different perspective. We're always trying to help you win your fantasy leagues, but we're also talking about doing dynasty leagues. We're talking about how to turn some of these fantasy props into wagers, too, because this is a wagering network last time I checked. So all of that just kind of crosses together in a little old show called FST, and I'm very happy to be here. And just once, Matt, you know, everybody wants me for my mind. Just once, it would be nice if somebody just want me for my body for a change. You know, like, can we be more superficial once in a while? It's always my mind that everybody
The show
wants.
after this might have what you're looking for, so stick around. The show after this will definitely stick around. Yeah, definitely. Okay,
yeah, they don't call it in-game live for a reason, folks. I mean,
it's the first portion of the show's name. All right, folks, there's just so much that we have to get into here because while we love to have fun here on the network, we're all just a group of friends that pretty much talk sports. But what I love about it is when I listen and watch other shows here on SportsGrid is we get different opinions. And that's what's important. But at the end of the day, people that have drafts coming up and things like that, you're the one that has to press the button. So let's get into some information here. Let's start with some headlines. Let's start with the lineup, Joe. CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys are lining up against one another, and that's not going to be good. Let's start there.
Yeah, we got to start there. But let me be really frank about this. There's no way this deal isn't getting done. The Cowboys literally cannot afford to go into the season, haha, dad jokes aside, without CeeDee Lamb. He is the offense. That's it. But Jalen Tolbert, I mean, is that where we're going here, folks? And Brandon Cooks, that's how we're going to open the season? Come on. Come on, this is not what's happening here. So CeeDee Lamb will figure it out. Now, George Kurtz yesterday on FST on the Saturday edition brought up a good point, which is sometimes when these guys hold out, they end up coming into camp late. Sometimes they have those soft tissue injuries. They can linger throughout a season. So all of a sudden, he's getting a little antsy about taking him at the 101 or 102 picks, which I understand. Now, typically that tends to happen a little bit more with running backs and wide receivers from what I've seen historically speaking, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. Jonathan Taylor, perfect example last year, right? A guy that was holding out, guy that we waited on, came in, had soft tissue injuries, had some more injuries, and it ended up becoming kind of a waste of a season. With CeeDee Lamb, I think it's a little different. I mean, we are talking about a guy at wide receiver, different position, a guy at the prime of his career, and I am very comfortable taking CeeDee Lamb still as the 101. That being said, you don't have to. And in this hour, we're going to talk about some of the other guys that maybe can challenge for that 101 spot. If you want to go Chase, that's fine. If you want to go Tyreek Hill, sure, that makes a ton of sense. CMC is still out there. We talked a lot about maybe some of the downside of CMC yesterday, those 417 touches he had. But Jerry Jones has got to, figure this out. Pay CeeDee Lamb. You see what the other guys, Justin Jefferson and others, are getting paid. He's in that same breath. I understand last year was the quote-unquote big season we've been waiting for CeeDee Lamb, but I think we're just scratching the surface. So I'm confident that the Cowboys get this done. You can't go into the season without CeeDee Lamb if you're the Dallas Cowboys. You just can't do it. They're not built for anything else.
Joe, walk me through an ecosystem, right? You talk about it in the Black Book, an offensive ecosystem for Dallas, where a guy like Rico Dowdle is starting to raise some eyebrows. What if CeeDee Lamb isn't on the field for any period of time at all because of financial, because of physical issues, emotional, mental? What do the Cowboys look like then, and what does the ecosystem look like?
Well, if CeeDee Lamb is not there, you have to do a wellness check on every single Cowboy fan on the planet. That's first and foremost. And then probably a wellness check on Jerry Jones to see what the hell he's thinking about, because at this stage in his life, too, maybe it's time to say, Jerry, it's been your team for a long time. You really had the reins, but maybe it's time to sit back. If Bill Belichick can sit back and be removed of some duties, I know he's the owner and all, but Jerry Jones needs to step back and realize that maybe being GM is not the best thing for the Dallas Cowboys, considering we haven't seen them in a Super Bowl in 2 decades.
I have a question, though. Doesn't Jerry Jones and other owners have an obligation to not be held up in situations like this? If Jerry Jones gives in and say CeeDee Lamb and his team ask for some outrageous number, don't you think there needs to be a line that has to be held? And a lot of these GMs and owners feel that responsibility, no?
They feel that responsibility, but Jerry Jones has also set himself up in a bad situation where he has no leverage in this. So that's a bad job by you then if you are running the money here. Because if you're the Dallas Cowboys, what are your options? As I said, Jalen Tolbert, Brandon Cooks, you're going to go into war with that in a very competitive division there where the Commanders are going to be better, where the Giants, think that they've, taking a step forward, bringing guys like Malik Neighbors, kind of changing the organization a little bit. And you still got the Eagles at the very top of it that you got to contend with, not to mention some of the other big teams in the NFC. So Jerry Jones has got to put himself in a situation where he doesn't have the leverage. So that's the problem, I think, if you're Jerry Jones. Not that, this player is going to hold out and ask for more money and they already signed this contract. This is the nature of the beast. Until NFL starts to look more like MLB and these guys are starting to get actual guaranteed money contracts across the board, this is what you're always going to have. Because the NFL career is shorter. The NFL career can end at a moment's notice, more so than most other professional sports. And that's why we have what we have. So until the NFL starts sharing a little bit more of the pot with the players in a better way, it's going to continue to be this way. And I think that's unfortunate. But to answer your question about what they look like, it's probably more run heavy at the end of the day. So you're going to see more Rico Dowdle. You're going to see plenty of Ezekiel Elliott. And Rico Dowdle's been the guy so far in camp that, to me, he surprised last year. There was a lot of moments of Rico Dowdle where I thought, this guy might be able to handle this workload. I think the Cowboys sort of thought the same thing going into this year. Bringing Zeke back makes a lot of sense because it's familiarity with the organization. He still has a little bit left in the tank, but you don't have to rely on him as a 3-down back. Whereas Rico Dowdle, I think, is the guy that is going very late in drafts that you should be considering, because when you're talking about running backs, you're typically looking for the younger guy in the backfield more often than not, and that's what Rico Dowdle is.
All right, well, let's move on to, we were talking wide receivers with Dallas, talking about what their offense might look like. A Brandon Ayuk update. Anything that you've heard? Last I checked, he was going to be a Steeler, and then what's up?
Yeah, the longer this draws on, the longer it seems like it's going to end up being not a trade, I think, at this point.
Wow.
So I still think I'm looking at more of a coin flip here where it's 50-50 that he goes. And it's also because I believe Kyle Shanahan, once again, thinks he's the smartest guy in the room always, where it doesn't matter. We'll just put somebody else in. We've got all these weapons and we drafted Ricky Pearsall and we know what we're doing. And it's that sort of hubris that kind of lost them the Super Bowl too, where, instead of just handing the ball off to Christian McCaffrey another half a dozen times, we're going to get fancy and do some trick plays and do some stupid nonsense and end up losing a Super Bowl. And that's pretty much what happened. So, and let's not pretend like he didn't also almost lose against Green Bay at home and against the Lions at home too, for the same kind of nonsense. So, look, I think the Ayuk thing is going to be tough. His draft stock, you can see kind of dropping a little bit. And another guy whose draft stock is dropping a little bit, one of my favorite sleepers is Josh Downs, who's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks here with the high ankle sprain. It's never a good one. You never like to see this, especially because he was getting a lot of positive buzz out of camp with the Colts. A guy last year had a pretty good season, I think unheralded one, where you look and say, oh, you know what? He was pretty decent last year. And as a rookie, maybe there's room to grow with Anthony Richardson. It seemed like the rapport between the two of them, Matt, was really good. Now, unfortunately, it looks like he's going to be on the shelf, missing the rest of training camp and a little bit into the season. But I guess the silver lining is now a guy that I liked already as a sleeper becomes a deep sleeper because he's got that little injury tag next to him. So you have to pay even less for Josh Downs. And that becomes, I think, an interesting scenario when you're looking for some value and depth at the wide receiver position. But sometimes you got to get the draft right at the beginning. When we come back, we're going to play a little Who'd You Rather in the first round.
Russell Wilson listed as quarterback 1 on, of course, every team's got to put out these dopey unofficial depth charts before their preseason games. Wilson listed as 1, but Fields is going to start the preseason opener against the Texans.
I still think they're going to start Wilson, but, if they start Fields, so be it. Like, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I know this. I think they're both talented.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
What is the ceiling for this kid? Now that he's got the money, and we saw something click with him, what is the ceiling for a Jordan Love in this Green Bay team?
Deepest pass target group in the National Football League, 2 stud tight ends. They're legit 5 deep at receivers, 7 bona fide pass targets deal. Come on, man. This guy could be a stud. Top 5 quarterback.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Say the under has the correct juice to the 6.5 win total for the New York Giants. It's a losing season. It's a bad season in the greater New York area. Is Brian Daboll and is Joe Shane back next year?
As a Giants fan, what are you looking forward to? Absolutely nothing. You're hoping like the Yankees make a long enough run so you can forget about the Giants.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Let's go. Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship. The golf has been mesmerizing. They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes! Are you ready?
Let's go!
That's what champions do.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. My name's Matt Stryker. His name's Joe Pisapia. We're giving you everything you need, whether you're playing in a season-long DFS, straight-up wagering, whatever it is. The conversations that you will hear on this show are going to help you no matter what. We're talking football with the author of the Fantasy Black Book, Joe Pisapia. At the top of the show, we were talking about the situation between CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys, contract standoff, talking about how the Dallas Cowboys cannot afford, in Joe's brilliant mind, to lose CeeDee Lamb in any way. I say that maybe the owners have an obligation to hold the line so that some of these contract numbers don't get too inflated. With that said, it's time to play Would You Rather. Joe, with the information from the top of the show, would you rather CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill? You're going into a draft tonight. Who you picking?
Well, I think at this very moment, the Tyreek Hill selection makes a little bit more sense. And I think that's also, historically speaking, when you look at what Tyreek Hill has done the last few years, again, these numbers go back to some Chiefs days too. But if you're looking at 2020 with Kansas City, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 6 in 2021. Then he goes to Miami, becomes wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2. So the consistency is certainly there for Tyreek Hill. CeeDee Lamb, it's taken him a little while to get to that level. He was wide receiver 18 in 2021. In 2022, he's wide receiver 6, so we got up there. And then last year, obviously, the incredible season of 1749 and 12 touchdowns. I mean, that is just an enormous number for CeeDee Lamb. And there are questions. Can he repeat that? He had a monstrous game towards the end of the season, too, that really padded those numbers. But even if it comes down to, let's say, 1,510, he's still going to be in that conversation. However, at this given time, if you are somebody that is concerned about the CeeDee Lamb situation or worried that missing training camp is going to have a negative effect on him, which I think is a very valid point, then yeah, I think Tyreek Hill is a perfect pivot, because I think more than anything, when you're at the top of drafts, it's more just don't get it wrong, because I think there's no wrong answers here in terms of talent, but in terms of situation, sometimes there is. And right now, the Tyreek Hill situation is paid, right? He's happy. He's in an offense for a third year. It's got the same quarterback situation, the same offense. It's going to be incredibly efficient. So Tyreek Hill is a perfectly good set. You know what? I don't even want to worry about the Lamb situation, all the possible downside. Can he repeat? When is he showing up? Does he show up in good shape and healthy and all that stuff? Just take Tyreek Hill and move on, because the last thing you want to do is start your team and the first pick you have with somebody that you have question marks about. So if you don't need to, don't.
I love it. Perfectly said. Brilliant as usual. Okay, let's step through a Stargate. Okay, parallel universe. Look at this. Boom, you're back in a draft. You have the first pick. Now, is it Bijan Robinson or is it Breece Hall? And I can almost hear the universe shouting the answer, but I want to hear from you.
I love a good Stargate reference too. Where's James Spader when you need him? That's what I think.
I think. Let's diverge completely and talk about Lionsgates and portals into other dimensions. Now, Bijan Robinson.
Where's my Ancient Aliens guy hair? See, if I had that ready today. See, the thing about CeeDee Lamb, guys, is that it's unbelievable to think about what happened last year. See, but I need the hair. I can't quite pull it off without the hair. I love that guy. Jealous of the hair, clearly.
Somebody has to. But it still remains in this universe and others. Would you choose Bijan Robinson or Breece Hall? For me, it's Bijan Robinson all day long. But you often talk about questions with regards to who's under center in New York and what that's going to look like. Talk about the ecosystem of both teams.
I agree on the Bijan Robinson factor. And it seems like the consensus is starting to agree with me more. Breece Hall was clearly the number 2 guy. And this is not a knock on Breece Hall. Please understand this. What's so interesting, too, is we found out yesterday that just through process of discussion, that the Breece Hall rushing total in Vegas is actually higher over-under number than it is for Christian McCaffrey this year. So what is Vegas telling us about Christian McCaffrey? And maybe we should be looking at the unders for him. Really interesting. But about Bijan, you finally got a quarterback here. You have a coaching staff that says we're committed to running Bijan Robinson. He's extraordinary talent out of Texas, a guy that last year was a rookie, still flashed some brilliance, but he's one of those guys that needs more carries because he is a rhythm worker, as a lot of running backs are. Now, Breece Hall is always going to get those carries. There are some questions about the age of the quarterback, where the quarterback's head is at, but also, the situation with the Jets is one where you want to run the ball, play defense, and the defense is so good. How much are they getting challenged in games, and are they just kind of sitting on the ball in the fourth quarter, getting some other guys some work? I mean, these are kind of the nitpicky things that you have to do when you're nitpicking between two extraordinary talents. It's not that I wouldn't want to have either on my fantasy team. You'd be very lucky to have either of these guys. But when I look at Bijan, I see the opportunity for more explosiveness potentially with point totals. I see a guy who is also going to work in the passing game. And yes, you could say, well, he's got an older quarterback coming off Achilles injury too. But that quarterback is a little bit younger than Aaron Rodgers last time I checked, too. So I'm just looking at this and saying, I think Bijan is ready for that big season. If I have to only pick one, and I do because it's the first round, I'm going to take Bijan.
All right, I like it. I agree, but I can't wait to hear on social media at SportsGrid TV. Jet fans, sound off on Joe Pisapia. He's in your area. He's from Jersey. I mean, he's from Brooklyn, but he's living in Jersey. All right, with the time that we have left, I really want to dive into this. Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. Now, we have this huge problem in the fantasy community about recency bias. You don't see it so much in wagering because I do believe that wagering has a bit more level-headed approach than fantasy does. But Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, it comes down to quarterback play for me. But I want to hear from you.
Oh, it absolutely does. The question here isn't Chase or Jefferson. It's Joe Burrow or Sam Darnold / JJ McCarthy. And I'm sorry, if we're playing that game, it's Jamar Chase all day. Not a knock on Justin Jefferson, extraordinary talent, but it's going to be hard to find consistency because there's going to be turnover at quarterback. The only way there's turnover at quarterback in Cincinnati is if there's another injury. So Chase all day.
All right, now here we go. The main event. Jet fans, are you ready for this one? Remember, he's at Joe Pisapia 17. Monmouth, Morristown, something like that. I don't know. Garrett Wilson. Yeah. No, yeah, sure, that over there. Weehawken. Garrett Wilson or Marvin Harrison Jr. And again, it comes down to quarterback play. Joe, with the time that we have left, take over.
This also comes down to defense. And the Arizona Cardinals don't really have one, which means they're going to be having to put up points over and over and over again. There's no one else besides Trey McBride he has to fight for with targets. Look, Garrett Wilson's extraordinary, but to me, Marvin Harrison is the guy that I want ahead of him because I think he has a season with some numbers I'm going to throw at you when we come back. They're going to blow your mind.
Russell Wilson listed as quarterback one on, of course, every team's got to put out these dopey unofficial depth charts before their preseason games. Wilson listed as one, but Fields is going to start the preseason opener against the Texans.
I still think they're going to start Wilson, but, if they start Fields, so be it. Like, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I know this. I think they're both talented.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
What is the ceiling for this kid? Now that he's got the money, and we saw something click with him, what is the ceiling for a Jordan Love in this Green Bay team?
Deepest pass target group in the National Football League, 2 stud tight ends. They're a legit 5 deep at receiver, 7 bona fide pass targets deal. Come on, man. This guy could be a stud. Top 5 quarterback.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Say the under has the correct juice to the 6.5 win total for the New York Giants. It's a losing season. It's a bad season in the greater New York area. Is Brian Daboll and is Joe Shane back next year?
As a Giants fan, what are you looking forward to? Absolutely nothing. You're hoping like the Yankees make a long enough run so you can forget about the Giants.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Let's go. Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship. The golf has been mesmerizing. They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go! That's what champions do.
All right, folks, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today, a living, breathing show with 2 real humans. Check it out, believe it or not. Folks, the conversation has spilled over to social media, so we're going to carry it over here into this segment. Joe, when we last left you, you were talking the merits of Garrett Wilson versus Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'd like to continue that conversation because it seems to have roused many in the cyber world. Go.
Yeah, look, Garrett Wilson is great. So let me just put that out there. I think he's a tremendous talent, and he could very well be, Aaron Rodgers, new Devontae Adams. We're just going to pepper him with targets, and it's going to be glorious. However, it's the defense on the other side too, where you're not going to get in the shootouts. The expected totals for the Jets, I don't think you're going to have to get pushed a lot of weeks, whereas the Cardinals are. It's a very easy funnel. It's Trey McBride, it's James Conner, and it's Marvin Harrison Jr. And if you think Marvin Harrison Jr. can't be a guy that all of a sudden just breaks out and has a huge rookie season, let me take you back a few years, okay? Let me take you back to 2020. Justin Jefferson, 1,400 receiving yards, the fourth most ever by a rookie. And if that's not good enough, how about let's go 1 year later, 2021, 1,455 by Jamar Chase. So that was, just a couple years ago. And then let's take you back to, last year when Puka Nacua set the all-time record for 1,486. Do you see a trend here? Okay. So 3 of the top 4 rookie wide receiver receiving seasons in terms of yardage have been since 2020. So why can't Marvin Harrison come into the league and have 1,400 out of the gate? I don't know. I can't think of a reason why, because he's extraordinarily talented. He's a great route runner, great hands, NFL pedigree. His dad certainly, I'm sure, prepared him of what it's like to be in the league. He played at Ohio State. So he ticks all the boxes. And the only other guy that's not from the 2020s is a guy from 1960. Now, if you can name that name, good for you. It's Bill Gorman from the Houston Oilers back in 1960. So there you go.
Gorman
So again, think about that. Jefferson, Chase, Puka Nacua from 2020 to 2024, 3 of the top 4 rookie wide receiving seasons. That's the league we live in. And I think if you're going to ask me who has a bigger chance to get to that number of 1,400, it's not Wilson. It's Harrison and the way the Cardinals are currently structured.
And because this is a fluid conversation, it's time to switch to NFL running backs to avoid. But when you mentioned Connor with Arizona, my thought was, and you'll have to correct me, and I hope I'm not wrong here, should anything happen there, is Benson waiting in the wings? Robert Guillaume in a football match, but right? Yeah. I mean, so there's a lot of options there.
Come for the football, stay for the 80s references, folks. Yes.
Yes. All right.
Very good young running back, too, at that.
All right, so those are running back to keep eyes on. How about running backs to avoid here? So before the show, just so you know, folks, we get on, as does our production team, and we just have conversations. How dare we? Talking about avoiding this particular running back opened up the conversation that Joe may be fading an entire offensive ecosystem, and I think it's going to shock some people. Joe, first running back to avoid, comes out of Chicago.
Yeah, the first one here is DeAndre Swift, and this is for a couple of reasons. The breaking tackle metrics for him aren't great, number one. Number two, wherever he's been, he's never been the touchdown guy. You can go back and look at that historically. Guys have outpaced him for touchdowns. He struggles at the goal line. And then if you go back to yesterday, I think it's a real good indication of the kind of scenario he's in, where Khalil Herbert was the guy who got 9 touches, and how many did Swift get? Oh, right, 1. Now, look, he also did have a big catch there, so there's explosiveness with Swift, and he will work as that change of pace guy. But the drafting where he's currently going, I think, is just really just a high-end kind of guy. And I don't know if I want to go that route. I'd rather take a Brian Robinson Jr. who has more touchdown equity to his offense. Because, look, we're talking about a very crowded backfield and a guy that's limited in terms of the snaps and touches he's going to get because it's crowded and because of the style of running back that he is. The next guy on this list is Josh Jacobs. Another one where you look at Green Bay historically with LaFleur, and he likes to spread the ball around. Now, that's not a great thing because Jacobs' fantasy value the last couple of years was built on one thing, volume, because the metrics were mediocre for the most part on him as a running back. You start to take away that volume, you start to take away a little bit of his ability to return fantasy investment. In that same range, I'd much rather be taking guys like Rashad White, or even wait a little longer and take a guy who's going to get all the volume like Ramondre Stevenson. So that's another guy that I think you're concerned with. Marshawn Lloyd, obviously a guy that could eventually eat into some of those carries there as long as he stays healthy. But Jacobs, for me, is another one of these guys where, running backs get jettisoned from teams for a reason, and then they don't often find that second life on a second team. And then the last guy here on the list is a guy that I do love the talent. I'm just a little skeptical of when he's going to arrive. And it's Jonathan Brooks. And Brooks is, again, extraordinary talent. We heard a lot of the same things that we heard last year when we were talking about Javonte Williams. He's ahead of schedule. He had the torn ACL. He's going to be back. It's going to be fine. And then Javonte Williams never looked like himself all year. Maybe he comes back in the first month of the season. Maybe it's the second month of the season. But Jonathan Brooks is a player I think you want in Dynasty, or you buy low on this year for Keeper League. But in 2024, I have some concerns. We'll be back with more FST.
Russell Wilson listed as quarterback 1 on, of course, every team's got to put out these dopey unofficial depth charts before their preseason games. Wilson listed as 1, but Fields is going to start the preseason opener against the Texans.
I still think they're going to start Wilson, but, if they start Fields, so be it. Like, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I know this. I think they're both talented.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
What is the ceiling for this kid? Now that he's got the money, and we saw something click with him, what is the ceiling for a Jordan Love in this Green Bay team?
Deepest pass target group in the National Football League, 2 stud tight ends. They're a legit 5 deep at receivers, 7 bona fide pass targets deal. Come on, man. This guy could be a stud. Top 5 quarterback.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Say the under has the correct juice to the 6.5 win total for the New York Giants. It's a losing season. It's a bad season in the greater New York area. Is Brian Daboll and is Joe Shane back next year?
As a Giants fan, what are you looking forward to? Absolutely nothing. You're hoping like the Yankees make a long enough run so you can forget about the Giants.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Let's go. Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship. The golf has been mesmerizing. They are the Live Golf Team champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go! That's what champions do.
All right, welcome back into FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today. Matt and Joe with you here. We have almost a dozen minutes to talk about NFL rookie wide receivers, but during the break, Joe and I were talking about the fact that flag football may be coming to the Olympics in the future, and I almost want to spend all the time on just what that means for football in general, but we'll save that for another show in another format. Talking rookie wide receivers, Joe had a great stat before we went to break with regards to rookie wide receivers and what they've done. And what was it, in the last 4 years versus the last 40 that have shown a great ability to catch and have touchdowns and things like that. So we're going to look at rookie wide receivers because Joe and I made the point here. The game is changing. The mentality of society is changing. Understanding what young people can do immediately is beginning to pay off. And there are some wide receivers that could make some immediate impacts, Joe.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors is definitely one of them. And I really like, again, the talent of Malik Neighbors. You have to love that. The situation has me a little concerned because I can't sit here and say that investing in wide receivers that have Daniel Jones as a quarterback is a great idea. That would make me a bad fantasy analyst. And I think this is the problem we struggle with too, where as fantasy analysts and all the nerd community out there, you know who you are. You love the talent, you fall in love with the talent, you fall in love with the tape and all the college film, and then you realize, wait a minute, he's not in as good a situation in the NFL, and that's a problem, okay? And Daniel Jones is, again, at a crossroads, and I don't know how many times we're going to make excuses for Daniel Jones. That, oh, well, he didn't have Saquon Barkley, or, oh, he wasn't healthy this year, and oh, this and that and all this nonsense. Well, here you go. Here's Malik Neighbors. Everybody's supposed to say, well, it's just going to be great because he's going to have all the volume. But what's the quality of that volume? I think that's questionable. And I think that's why his ADP is still wide receiver 24 overall. Now, as wide receiver 24 overall, I'll take that value in a PPR. You see the numbers here, the projections, 1,048, 80 receptions, 6 touchdowns. I think that's more his ceiling than necessarily his floor. And I think maybe somewhere in between is what you should be thinking about. And that's fine. At wide receiver 24, I'm perfectly fine. Now, where I struggle is I look after him and some of the guys going after him, like T. Higgins, who's already put up a wide receiver 16 seasons, right? Guys like George Pickens, who you know he's the number one in his offense, and you have a little bit better hope, regardless of who the quarterback is there. More on that to come. And guys like Terry McLaurin, who have 4 straight 1,000-yard receivers. So he's playing with a rookie quarterback, so there's uncertainty there, but I'm less uncertain about Jaden Daniels than I am about Daniel Jones. And I think that's what it comes down to for me. I'll take some of those veterans over Malik Neighbors than I will necessarily looking at Malik Neighbors and say he's going to crush all these expectations. I think those projections are actually really good. And if you're seeing numbers for him that are, I don't know, in the 1,100 range or things like that, I'd be looking for the unders.
All right. With that said, let's pivot now to, again, in an earlier segment, you were telling us to fade DeAndre Swift. In previous shows, you've mentioned how you do believe that a young quarterback is going to have a hard time making a significant impact given the weather, the situation, the entirety of Chicago. It feels like you're fading the Bears offense based off of that ecosystem. Talk about a young wide receiver and go.
Yeah, I think I'm fading them based on cost more than anything, because I think their cost is mid to high. Rome Odunze, just absolutely love this kid. You got a little glimpse of him in that Hard Knocks with the Giants too, when they were interviewing him. It's hard not to love this guy and fall in love with him. He's very bright. He's got an incredible future ahead of him. I think he's more of a player who's going to pop next year, or maybe down the stretch. And as the third target in a Bears offense led by a rookie quarterback, again, I struggle with this a little bit because you've got not one, but two big dog veterans, DJ Moore, who just got paid, and Keenan Allen, who just came over. Those guys are going to work. So how much is left for Rome Odunze? Unless there's an injury to one of these guys and all of a sudden then the void opens up and he can become great. So that's sort of the path to victory for him. When you're looking at the ADP for Rome Odunze, he's at wide receiver 40. Again, same spot here is another guy we're going to talk about who's on the Chiefs, who has a much clearer path to playing time, especially with Hollywood Brown now dealing with an injury, and explosive speed with the best quarterback in the league. So do I really want to go with Rome Odunze, or do I want to go with maybe, I don't know, the next guy on our list?
Well, you set it up perfectly, so let's take it away. It's Xavier Worthy, and I think a lot of people are finding themselves in drafts coming up and wondering who's around Worthy and why they should or should not take Worthy.
If you're looking for what a flex wide receiver looks like, this is the guy. A guy with lightning speed, right? Broke the clock at the 40-yard dash of the combine. A guy that can take the top off the defense, a good career at Texas, a player that, is stuck in a situation with Patrick Mahomes, right? Who made Tyreek Hill the superstar that he is. Tyreek Hill certainly helped, but let's be honest, a lot of people did not like Tyreek Hill. They thought he was just a speedster guy. They thought he was too small for the NFL. They thought a lot of things about Tyreek Hill. Well, Xavier Worthy is not Tyreek Hill necessarily, but he has a lot of those same qualities, and it's something that this offense lacked, which was big playmaking ability. So in terms of consistency, maybe it's going to be up and down, but if you're looking for the splash plays in situations and matchups where there's a lot of upside with some bad secondaries, this is the guy, because he is going to torch some corners. I'm telling you right now. You do not want linebackers somehow mismatched and trying to guard this guy. It's not going to happen. Okay, like it's that sort of a situation here where you can create all of this mismatch with Xavier Worthy because he's so fast, he's so quick, and as long as you can find that consistency with the quarterback and that relationship and rapport, good things are going to happen here for him. Now you might have to be patient. It might not hit in the first month of the season, but look, if you were patient last year with Rashee Rice, look what happened in the second half. And to that point too, the Rashee Rice thing, his legal trial is not till December 9th. It's starting to look more and more now like perhaps the NFL is just going to wait that out, if that even happens on the 9th and doesn't get delayed and more. And you might be getting a situation kind of like Alvin Kamara from a couple of years ago where it doesn't happen within this season, but a suspension happens potentially next year. So all of a sudden he becomes a value on boards too. But both of those guys, Worthy specifically too, real flex appeal for me.
All right, moving on. Folks, if you're new to this show, just want to let you know when Joe starts to talk about a football player in like May or April, you have to understand that Joe really likes a player, and he's usually right about a lot of things. Ladd McConkey, though, I think the conversation becomes who's throwing the football, right? We oftentimes want to talk about the quarterback-receiver relationship. Ladd McConkey was very high on your list for a very long time. Still the same?
He is. The plantar fascia with Justin Herbert, something we're going to talk a lot about in hour two. But I still like Ladd McConkey. It's hard not to because, again, it's a situation that's very clear. Josh Palmer is an average NFL wide receiver. I don't know if he is special. Can he be a guy that you draft and play in matchups or during bye weeks? Absolutely. Ladd McConkey has the opportunity to kind of grow and become a really important slot wide receiver. And when you're talking about PPR leagues, those slot wide receiver points are huge. They are much bigger because they get more looks, more targets typically. And if Herbert is limited by that injury earlier, in some ways, we're going to have to get rid of the ball quicker. We're going to have to look for guys like Ladd McConkey who can get open on his own. And Ladd McConkey, as long as he's healthy, is another one of these wide receivers. Would I rather take guys like Christian Watson over him? Yes, because of the quarterback situation and the talent of guys like Christian Watson. But in that same wide receiver 40 range, it's hard not to like the appeal of Ladd McConkey.
All right, with the time that we have left, let's stretch our legs and talk about this Buffalo Bills offensive ecosystem that has changed considerably over the last few seasons. Keon Coleman could be a big part of this ecosystem, correct?
Could be, might not be. We don't know for sure, and that's why it's tough to invest on him. I'm not saying definitively he's not going to be. He's a good college wide receiver. I know a lot of smart college football people that think he's going to be great in the NFL. I also know a lot of NFL evaluating talent that says that they have concerns about Keon Coleman and how quick he's going to adjust. The answer is we just don't know. The void of Stephon Diggs is probably not going to be filled by one guy. Now, it might, as our good friend on the program, Derek Brown, likes to say, there's a range of outcomes here. And that's what worries me with Keon Coleman. Do the Buffalo Bills look like a team that's just going to run the football a lot more? Are they a team that's going to all of a sudden be very tight end?
Russell Wilson listed as quarterback one on, of course, every team's got to put out these dopey unofficial depth charts before their preseason games. Wilson listed as one, but Fields is going to start the preseason opener against the Texans.
I still think they're going to start Wilson, but, if they start Fields, so be it. Like, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I know this. I think they're both talented.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
What is the ceiling for this kid? Now that he's got the money, and we saw something click with him, what is the ceiling for a Jordan Love in this Green Bay team?
Deepest pass target group in the National Football League, 2 stud tight ends. They're legit 5 deep at receivers, 7 bona fide pass targets deal. Come on, man. This guy could be a stud. Top 5 quarterback.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Say the under has the correct juice to the 6.5 win total for the New York Giants. It's a losing season. It's a bad season in the greater New York area. Is Brian Daboll and is Joe Shane back next year?
As a Giants fan, what are you looking forward to? Absolutely nothing. You're hoping like the Yankees make a long enough run so you can forget about the Giants.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Let's go. Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship. The golf has been mesmerizing. They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go! That's what champions do.
All right, welcome back in. It's FST, Fantasy Sports Today. Matt and Joe with you. Earlier on in the show, we talked about running backs to avoid. So now I think it's appropriate to do FST wide receivers to avoid. And what I love about these segments, Joe, is that it gets so much of a reaction on social media because everyone has a different opinion, right? But at the end of the day, Joe is usually right, folks. And I'm not just saying it because I'm sitting doing a show with him. He really is usually right in his reasoning. He shows his work. Remember, I'm a school teacher. He shows his work, and that is what's great. So tell me how you get to Stephon Diggs in new Diggs as a wide receiver to avoid.
Well, I think we always do this to ourselves, right? Where we see guys that are very familiar to all of us, right? Oh, Stephon Diggs, I've drafted him a bunch. Okay, he's with the Texans now. Okay, sure, whatever. I have had Stephon Diggs, and I've gone to the playoffs and won championships. Well, it's not 2019 anymore. I mean, this is a different era that we're in. And I think that we have to look at it seriously and say, it's not so much hating on Stephon Diggs is where is he going in ADP? And what does that offense look like with Stephon Diggs? And the answer is just like the Keon Coleman answer. We don't know. I don't know. You don't know. Stop pretending that you do. All you can do is look at it and say on this board, there's upside, right? There's star potential because he's been a star. Can he go here and take his star there? Maybe. But this isn't like DeAndre Hopkins leaving the Houston Texans a couple years ago and going to a situation where he was the alpha wide receiver with Kyler Murray in the Arizona Cardinals. He's not the alpha here. It's Nico Collins, folks. And if you don't think it's Nico Collins, go back and look at the stats from last year. It's Nico Collins. So Stephon Diggs is there to help out, hopefully not cause a problem, which has also been kind of his MO too. He's been a big diva kind of wide receiver guy, demanding the football. A lot of those guys do that. What impact is that going to have on a guy like CJ Stroud, who's a young quarterback and very impressionable? There's a lot of questions there for me. So the biggest question is where he's being drafted. And currently, when you're looking at the Stephon Diggs ADPs at wide receiver 20 in a unique situation where Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, all right, that's kind of your 1, 2, 3 in ADP in that grouping. Now, Cooper Kupp has more upside by far than Stephon Diggs, in my opinion, because of the offense and the structure he's working in. And I know he's got a ton of risk. Let's not pretend like Stephon Diggs doesn't have risk either. If you want to just pivot away from him and go one step below, DK Metcalf might not have maybe the upside of the other two, but certainly the safer floor. So for me, I think at the end of the day, with that wide receiver 2/3 spot that you're looking at drafting Stephon Diggs, I think I'd rather have DK Metcalf and just kind of call it a day, depending on who my number 1 or number 2 was and how the structure of my roster is. So again, Diggs is not a sure thing. We need to stop thinking about him as that. And the biggest trap that people fall into, the casual fantasy manager, is, oh, I'm familiar with Stephon Diggs. Right. I know what he is. No. You know what he was. That's the difference.
Oh, love it, Joe. Folks, I don't know about you, but Joe, you've done a great job of getting me off Stephon Diggs. Also considering that I can quickly run through all of the names in that offense that you can see taking a share, and to compound further, I think it had to have been last night, already on social media, some videos of Diggs and Stroud kind of having very animated conversations on the sidelines. So all these things that you're talking about could be coming to fruition. All right, you mentioned this player, so let's go. DeAndre Hopkins in Tennessee, you're avoiding him. Tell me why.
I am. He's already going to miss time going into the season. He's it breaks my heart because I love DeAndre Hopkins, man. I mean, this was the guy that, how many guys, it breaks my heart. Well, how many guys can you say are quarterback proof, right? I mean, this guy's been quarterback proof for his life. He's played with Brian Hoyer. He's played with, just everybody is important in his career. And the guy continues to just, ball out no matter where he is. And I respect that. And I love that about him. But when you get 10 years into the league, things start to drift off a little bit. He's already hurt. You're going to have injuries on your fantasy team already. So why are we doing this to ourselves? Why are we trying to continue to push this envelope with DeAndre Hopkins? Calvin Ridley's being elevated, I think, a little too much. Will Levis, I don't know what he's going to be. A friend of mine put it to me the other day. It's going to be a 30-30 guy. He's going to go like Jameis Winston back in the day, going to throw 30 touchdowns and 30 picks. That's a lot to handle if that's where we're going with this offense this year. So Hopkins already starting with an injury, already starting behind, isn't great. It doesn't bode well, especially when you're talking about an ecosystem where the quarterback is Will Levis and the head coach is not Mike Vrabel anymore. So we need to shake that out of our brains too. And I think that's where I struggle with DeAndre Hopkins. He's a Hall of Fame player. I think we can all agree on that. I just don't know if 2024 is the season I want to invest in him.
All right, now we can take the inverse of the quarterback play theory and apply it to this next veteran wide receiver. The New York Jets went out and got a name that on paper makes sense, but that's where the sense stops, especially considering the environment, the physical environment. Take it away. Talk about what's going on with the Jets.
So let's take the guy who's had more lower leg injuries than any other wide receiver in the last 5 years, and let's drop him in New York, the hardest turf, where guys have had the most lower leg injuries in the last 5 years.
Let's see what happens.
This is easy math for me. Look, is Mike Williams capable of having some big games and 2 touchdown games? Of course he is. He is a big-bodied wide receiver who can go up and get it. But you know what? We've been waiting a long time for Mike Williams to be great, and I just don't know at this point if the Jets offense with Hackett, who is a hack in my opinion, he's only got that job because of Aaron Rodgers. He proved he's way out of his depth in every other opportunity. Look at what happened last year when Aaron Rodgers wasn't around, how that offense completely fell apart. And yeah, the quarterback play was a big part of it, But let's also talk about the offensive coordinator, where a terrible job he did to trying to get the most out of those quarterbacks and their limitations. Mike Williams, I'm certainly going to be out on. Dontavian Wicks is in the exact same ADP. Look what Wicks did last night, that explosiveness, that fun with a young quarterback like Jordan Love. Yeah, give me Wicks over Williams any day of the week.
All right, with the time that we have left, talk to the Gabe Davis lover from the Gabe Davis hater.
Well, this is another one where you have a change of address, so people want to optimistically think, oh, well, it'll be better now. Why? Because Josh Allen is not a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence? I think the answer is we all know Josh Allen's a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. And Gabe Davis certainly at times was someone who disappeared for, it seemed like, weeks at a time. And we'd go, oh, look, there's Gabe Davis catching a football. Now, that's a different offense. Perhaps he's going to be used more here. But when you look at what the Jaguars were last year, it's a lot of Christian Kirk, a lot of Evan Ingram, and then they drafted Brian Thomas Jr. So why necessarily is Gabe Davis going to be a fantasy asset in 2024? I don't know. And if I don't know and I can't tell you, then why are you drafting him? We come back, we're going to do a deep dive on a player that could impact our Superflex leagues. Who is it? We'll tell you when we return.
Russell Wilson listed as quarterback one on, of course, every team's got to put out these dopey unofficial depth charts before their preseason games. Wilson listed as one, but Fields is going to start the preseason opener against the Texans.
I still think they're going to start Wilson, but, if they start Fields, so be it. Like, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I know this. I think they're both talented.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
What is the ceiling for this kid? Now that he's got the money, and we saw something click with him, what is the ceiling for a Jordan Love in this Green Bay team?
Deepest pass target group in the National Football League, 2 stud tight ends. They're a legit 5 deep at receiver, 7 bona fide pass targets deal. Come on, man. This guy could be a stud. Top 5 quarterback.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Say the under has the correct juice to the 6.5 win total for the New York Giants. It's a losing season. It's a bad season in the greater New York area. Is Brian Daboll and is Joe Shane back next year?
As a Giants fan, what are you looking forward to? Absolutely nothing. You're hoping like the Yankees make a long enough run so you can forget about the Giants.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Let's go. Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship. The golf has been mesmerizing. They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go! That's what champions do.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt and Joe talking everything you need in order to dominate the upcoming fantasy football season. Also, look, if you're straight up wagering, DFS, whatever it is, we have you covered. Joe, I really love this segment. It's time for an FST deep dive. And you chose a player that, honestly, I think people can easily forget about. And I think it's a shame because considering the opportunity, it's almost like a lottery ticket. But I'll let you take it from here. It's time for FST deep dive with Joe Pisapia.
Well, think about this. I'm going to give you 2 numbers, 35 and 25. Those are the ages of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers here, I understand bringing in Russell Wilson because you don't want to put pressure on Justin Fields if Fields is indeed what you think is the future. But if Justin Fields is showing you any glimpses of that future, why aren't you letting the future start now? What are you gaining by starting Russell Wilson? Do you think Russell Wilson's going to go out there and beat the Ravens? You think Russell Wilson's going to go out in that division and beat the Bengals? Because I don't. I don't think he's got the ability at this stage in his career to do that, not to mention all the leadership questions and the stuff that's been floating around about him. This is now his third team in 3 years that he's going to be playing for. Whereas Justin Fields was a situation where you saw glimpses of the talent. And from a fantasy perspective, even if you don't love the quarterback play, even if you think he's still a giant work in progress, a couple years ago, he had 1,000 yards rushing. He was QB7 overall, and he didn't even play the full season. Let me say that again, 1,000 yards rushing from a quarterback, not to mention all the rushing touchdowns he could bring in. What he could do for this offense, what he could do for the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers is changing, right? I mean, you either have a quarterback in this league or you don't. And I think with Russell Wilson, you don't. And with Justin Fields, you might. So if you might want to get this guy in there sooner than later and just let him play. Now, I'm not saying he's going to start week 1 necessarily. I'm not saying he's going to start week 4. But if Russell Wilson takes more snaps than Justin Fields this year, then it's an epic failure by the Steelers, because you either didn't identify who that next quarterback is going to be soon enough, or you were wrong in thinking it was going to be either of these two guys. So to me, the whole Justin Fields, good news out of camp, all that buzz is important. It is good. And if you're in Superflex leagues, you should be taking this guy as your third quarterback, because the upside is a top 10 fantasy quarterback. I'm telling you, there are going to be some bumps in the road. We know that about him. But he's still a guy that was fighting for national championships in the college level. So, Matt, to me, Justin Fields is one of these guys. If you're in Superflex leagues, you could take him as a third quarterback very easily. You take some boring Derek Carr type QB or whatever that is your QB2, and then you hope that Justin Fields at some point takes over. And when he does, he brings that rushing equity in fantasy that is so valuable. There's a chance he could outscore even guys like Anthony Richardson, dare I say, who I absolutely love this year. But think about it.
Really?
If you're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin, you're talking about a team that historically has always been super competitive. As much as I love Shane Steichen and what Anthony Richardson can do, it's not like you're looking around and seeing, well, there's George Pickens and there's Pat Freiermuth and there's two capable running backs. There's a lot to work with, and a veteran situation of coaching where it's a much better spot to grow a young quarterback into hopefully a star at some point.
Listen, I agree with you, but I think overall a lot of fantasy managers just play stay away because of the uncertainty. Now, I'm with you. If come week 1, week 2, the dust settles and it seems like it's Fields' team, then you just have to start to look at the offensive ecosystem of the Steelers and try to find your value. But what I like that you bring to the table is the volatility and what Tomlin can do here and there with actually both players on the field. And I think that's going to be fun. But once we see what the Steelers are, we'll better understand how to wager upon them, nonetheless invest in them in fantasy. Joe?
Yeah, look, when you're in those super flex leagues, Matt, you're looking for upside there in your second quarterback if you didn't get it, especially in your QB1. And those drafts are so hard because there's some where the quarterbacks basically just go in the first round, and there's some where it gets a little checkered there and people are willing to take more position players and the quarterbacks last a little bit and there's more discipline. So you really just never know. So you've got to be very aware of that value on the board at quarterback. And when you start to go down at the quarterback position too, you could say there's going to be some guys there that emerge. You hope that J.J. McCarthy over time takes over that job and is good. We'll see what happens with Bo Nix. But Deshaun Watson is a guy that I see also being drafted ahead of Justin Fields. And I get it. I understand why. In theory, he's the starter. But what have you seen out of Deshaun Watson over the last 3 years that makes you excited to draft him? I haven't seen it. I don't think any of us have seen it in a very long time. Whereas Fields, there is a path that is very clear to me, at least, for that upside. So it's just a matter of how you want to use that draft capital. I think people forget from a fantasy perspective just how good he was on an awful Bears team with an awful offensive line that could not keep him upright. He was sacked more than anybody else in the league, and that's considering how fast he is. So don't forget about Justin Fields in your Superflex leagues. Great value. Back hour 2 and team preview on FSD.